This week, Shoshana Gourdin joins us to discuss morale as a safety control. Then Scott Crawford from 451 Research joins us to talk about XDR and the SOC. Finally, in the enterprise security news, is the art of VC valuations a lie? No-name security hits unicorn status. Daz sounds like an 80s cartoon character and is the latest to join the CSPM category with a mega Series A. LogMeIn spins out LastPass. We'll talk about Log4Shell for a little bit, but not too much. We know you've been inundated with Log4j and Log4Shell stuff. Everyone forgot that AWS had an outage last week because of Log4Shell, at least until they had an outage this week. 83% of IT professionals can't guarantee infrastructure is safe from ex-employees, and the Senate approves cyber-loaded defense bill but stripped out incident reporting. All that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly.
People require access from anywhere to resources everywhere, but legacy security is ill-equipped for today's hybrid organization. AppGate SDP delivers zero-trust network access for hybrid workforces and workloads, empowering trusted users with secure, frictionless connections to only what they need. Make your attack surface invisible and reduce time to provision by 91% with AppGate SDP, a leader in the 2021 Forrester ZTNA New Wave. Learn more at securityweekly.com/appgate.
Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly and happy National Chocolate Covered Anything Day. As if you needed an excuse to cover things in chocolate. Except for Tyler, he hates chocolate, and Keanu Reeves. This is episode 254, recorded on Thursday, December 16th, 2021. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is the aforementioned Tyler Shields.
Yeah, the resident Keanu and chocolate hater. You're not wrong on either count.
Also joining me is Katie Teitler.
Good afternoon. No cheese today, or no chocolate today, but lots of cheese.
Lots of cheese. Okay.
Hey, real quickly, Katie, do you have an opinion on Keanu Reeves?
I do, but it's probably a very long answer we don't have time for because we have a great guest.
How about a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then we go to the guest.
I'm going to give you the lawyer's answer. It depends.
Oh, jeez. All right.
We'll make time for it later. Don't you worry. We'll make time. All right. One announcement today. Throughout 2022, CRA's Business Intelligence Unit will be releasing research reports on the top topics across the security industry. Our first report will be on third-party risk and the supply chain. To participate in the survey, please visit securityweekly.com/third-party risk. The results will be shared in our third-party risk e-summit in January. All right, and today for our first interview, the topic is morale as a safety control, and we're very excited to have Shoshana Gourdin with us today. Though Shoshana is moving on to new adventures, she was most recently a 14-plus year veteran of Akamai, where she has tackled compliance frameworks like PCI, SOX, and HIPAA. She's managed small and large teams. She's managed vulnerability management programs, incident response, and a long list of other security needs that popped up and needed sorting. What I find particularly interesting, however, is Shoshana's work in managing people, making them and their workflows more efficient and productive. Welcome to the show, Shoshana.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to be here.
It's fun to say Shoshana.
My name is a source of entertainment, especially how people spell it when they don't know me.
Yeah, I can imagine. With the name Sanabria, my Twitter handle is actually the worst misspelling I've ever seen of my last name. That's where it comes from.
I can believe that.
Yeah, Zawaba is my Twitter handle. So nothing like Sanabria, which is normal. So, to quote Andy Ellis here, her specialty is "Your org is an operational disaster. Please fix that." It seems to me that you come by your organizational impulses naturally. Did your time documenting lab procedures at MIT, And did that somehow prepare you for fixing broken org charts and streamlining InfoSec policies and processes?
So yes, but in a very roundabout way. One of the things that I find very interesting is that computer engineering is a new enough field, abstract enough, and removed enough from the physical world that people forget it's actually engineering. Nobody decides to assemble a chemical refinery plant by throwing things together until stuff doesn't leak onto the floor. But people do that with software, and they do it with organizations that have to run software. And so I found it very natural to apply an analytical eye to those topics. And I'm surprised that I occasionally have to remind people that it matters.
Yeah, and I think that might just be a symptom of the age of our industry, not being professionalized at this point. Even the, the degree programs and, the academic side of things is changing quicker than I thought academic stuff could change. Impressively quick, actually.
So I think it also has to do with the fact that it's, in a very narrow sense, invisible. That is, you can have all the outages and logging problems and vulnerabilities that you want, but they don't manifest visually or auditorially. I was trained as a chemical engineer. If you have a puddle like a literal actual puddle on the floor, it's kind of hard to pretend that it's not there.
Right. And generally, when other things in engineering fail, people get hurt and die, and that's not as common in cybersecurity yet, or IT yet.
Correct. Now, mind you, I am very grateful for that. I don't work in a chemical refinery. I don't risk having my colleagues injured because we didn't get to a valve in time. But I think that the analysis and the care that you apply is actually very appropriate for computer organizations, and particularly in a security field.
So help us understand, what you mean with this title, morale as a safety control. If you could guide us through that, maybe if you have an example or something.
Sure. So there's actually four points that I'd want to make. So the first is a reminder that computers are a human system. We design them, we build them, we operate them. So they sort of exist within a human space. We're not, say, like NASA, where we're fighting literal gravity. The second thing to remember, though, is that computers are this fabulous, huge, fiddly, complicated system, more so if you network them. And so they attract people who want the giant, complicated, fiddly, system to play with. But what that means is that you end up downplaying other aspects, somewhat to the detriment, I think. I think you can overemphasize the technical. There's also the point that, like any system, again, a factory or a refinery makes a great comparison, there's a surprisingly large amount of very routine work to keep things working well. Even in safety and security, step one is very routine, patch, read, track. These aren't complex operations. And so you end up needing this spread of expertise, this is point 4, that has to range from checklist of things to patch all the way through the very detailed investigation of something brand new. And so what I would posit is that one of the ways that you can have this, that you can get that span, is by having very deliberate attention paid to morale, because that's a way to have trusting and innovating employees. So let's take a straightforward scenario and say, okay, you have to do an OS upgrade, and there's that one server that's not upgraded, and it's never upgraded, and it's not going to be upgraded the next time. What's the low morale response to that scenario?
Whatever, right?
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Hey,
what's another low morale response?
Tyler, Katie?
Hard no.
I'm sure you've heard some. Say it again, Tyler.
Oh, I just said a pure hard no.
Sure, right? Just not engaged. Nope.
Yep, no.
What else?
Not my problem. That's something we
Yep.
see a lot in IT is pointing the finger like it's not my fault. It's that way.
Yep.
Somebody else wouldn't let me run it the way I wanted to, or
Yeah,
or it's always been that way. That's my
as a
favorite.
corollary, not my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Also, really low morale. Any more?
Yeah. We've always done it this way is one of my favorites.
Right. Yep.
Hang on.
And
Let me think back through the last 5 jobs I've had. I'm sure I can come up with more.
So one of the ones that I think we should put on this list is they suck. Right? Just straight up rudeness about your coworkers.
Yeah.
And the other one, particularly from operations, is just clicking the button that sends the form letter. Right? It's kind of an automated version of whatever. Like click. Okay, you're out of my head. So the immediate follow-on that I have for you all is, so what does that represent? What is that low morale world like? What are people's motivators? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cultural thing. Like I often think it kind of goes up to leadership. Like if the leadership doesn't care, you can't expect, the people lower on down to care about any of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Katie, Tyler, y'all got to help me out here.
No, I'm just going to leave you struggling.
I'm getting hard questions. I'm used to ask.
Yeah, usually asking the hard questions.
So I'll point out one. I already told you one aspect, right? It's rude. It's dismissive. Right? It's just kind of unpleasant in a social level. What else? You said it's always been this way, or I don't care. Like, what does that represent?
Apathy.
Yeah. Right. It's apathy. You're not invested in anything.
Yeah, like low expectations. I've been in a lot of organizations where, they become comfortable with that in a way, and that they're almost offended if they're expected to do something.
Right. And there's usually an underlying feeling, and it'll vary a little bit team to team, but it's fear or anxiety, right? Keeping your head down. Don't rock the boat. Don't, don't stick out. Don't make trouble. Right. And so I'm pretty sure that most of you and most of your listeners have seen that or been in that team, right? I think you know what that's like. So let's try this one, which is, okay, what's the higher morale response? Same scenario. There's that one machine, not upgraded, wasn't upgraded last time. What's the higher morale response?
Usually isn't the high morale response going to be, hey, I fixed it?
That's one. But there's a couple other ones that represent higher morale.
Well, let's figure out why it hasn't been patched or fixed.
Right. Let's figure out why. Maybe it's dependent on something.
Yeah, so an investigation. Yeah.
Right. You can go investigate. What else?
Let's see what it would entail to update it.
Yeah.
Would it have a production impact? Can we do it right now? Do we have to schedule it during an outage? Like a prearranged downtime.
And I would actually say that's beyond higher morale and into the third category, which I'd call best or optimal.
Oh, okay, cool.
That deep pursuit. How about Katie or Tyler? Like better, think better, a healthier team. What do you do with this scenario?
Not sure.
I don't think we've ever been in this scenario before. This is all alien to us.
So here's a couple things that I thought of. So one is making a record, just a straight up record. Okay, this server not updated for this reason. Another one is having an exception process where there's a routinized way to do that. These are higher morale, right? Maybe not optimal, but better. And the other is to talk to an expert. So either talk to your own boss or a senior engineer in the security team, or you talk to the people that maintain the server and you learn something. And so now I'm going to ask you again the same follow-on question. Okay, so what does this represent? What's the higher morale status here? What is this? What's the pattern?
I think some of it's momentum. It's like a culture of getting things done. Like once you do it a little bit, it becomes the norm, and you're more likely to do it next time. Especially, again, I talk to a lot of people that are kind of stuck in jobs in the low morale situation. And I've been in there too before, where I tried doing the high morale thing in a low morale place. And I got labeled a cowboy for like the next 2 years of my career, because I went out of my way to try and fix something. Right?
Absolutely. So there's a couple points there that I would highlight. One of which is I called it just action, right? Most of the higher morale things are active. The team does something, right? They ask, they write down, they fix, right? All of those are active. And it's not a solo pursuit. Right? If you are the only one trying to do it, you tend to get shut down. And so part of my calling it morale and not just hard work is that it relies on leadership. You have to have management and leadership supporting this.
Yeah. And initiative is one of the compliments that I noticed that you got in your LinkedIn referrals, is that even once one thing is fixed, you will go find other things to fix, because that is what you do. That is how you think.
And in fact, since we've already started touching on it, I'll talk briefly about what I see as the best response, which is I consider like, decent professional work is great. And then there's kind of that beyond of being in the team you really want to be in. So we've gotten one best case scenario. Hey, what would it take? What's our plan? How do we get from here to there? What's another best case scenario?
I think part of it is getting recognized, for that work that you do. I think it's it can't be just one person or one department. It has to be it has to feel more like a team. So
yeah, absolutely. I would say that that's a way to get a best case. But partly because it's a little hard, I'm pushing to describe the best case. What does the team do, or what does the individual do in a best case?
The individual in a best case.
Yeah. What's your best case do?
Get stuff done. You mentioned the bias towards action, right? Getting stuff done.
Not only that, but documenting it, making it repeatable.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. So I don't need to put you on the spot forever, but yes. So not only doing it, but writing it down, right? Another best case scenario is, oh, hey, I'm going to go get the new hire or the intern to come with me, right? Bring someone along, teach. Another one is to realize that you don't have the problem you think you have. Hey, why don't they ever upgrade that thing? Wait a minute. Our polling doesn't include that whole set of IPs. Why doesn't our polling include that whole set of IPs? Right? So you fix a different problem.
Right.
So what we have is things like use it as a teaching moment or improve it, write it down so you don't have to redo the work, find out and investigate beyond the scope of just the problem statement. And so when I talk about best case, what it is it's outside the boundaries of a task, and it's more of a focus on the mission or the overarching need.
And I just want to take a moment to highlight what you're going through, like challenging us with these questions. A lot of organizations don't have somebody doing that, don't have anybody thinking on that level of looking at the performance of their processes or their team in such a transparent way. I think a lot of people sit in these organizations and they know they're not productive. They know it's not, I don't want to say toxic, but it's not a high morale, to use your terminology, situation, but they can't put their finger on why. They can't put into words, here's what's wrong and here's what we need to fix it. And I think in some cases it's because some of these teams are just full of technical individual contributors, and that's just not how they think. That's not what they do. That's not what they specialize in. And nobody, or not nobody, but I think a lot of folks don't think to hire someone on their team that has that skill set, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's compounded by tech's bad habit of taking the best individual contributor techie and making them the manager. That's not how you get the best managers. That's how you get architects. It's how you get principal engineers, right? These folks are very valuable. But there's a difference between someone who wants to know and to explain technical matters and someone who wants to do managerial work. Because managerial work is a person job. And I think that that's very overlooked. Managers don't just get, hey, let's talk about our crypto. Okay, really? Yeah, I do not get crypto. What I get is, and these are not hypotheticals, I need to talk about my Me Too moment. That was someone walking into my office. I'm getting divorced. I have a serious health problem and I'm in the hospital. My parent has a serious health problem. No amount of tech training prepares you for this.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's a completely different role. It's a different career, different skill sets. And I'd say not only are most managers not trained or prepared for a management role, but they often don't want it. They accept it because it's a raise. It gives them more money. It gives them a higher title. But a lot of them just really don't want to be in that position. And I have a hard time telling you, how many people haven't had bad managers throughout their entire careers. Like it's rare for somebody to say, or in a lot of people's careers, they've got like that one manager, or those two managers that really stand out, and the other dozen or 2 dozen were just all awful. And that's most people's experiences, I feel like.
Unfortunately, I agree, but I find it very glum news to have to agree with you. I think that ideally management is a force multiplier. You have one manager. They bring a good attitude to a whole team of people, teach those people what it should look like, and then let it spread. So if I were going to try to give practical advice out to your listeners, it would be that I really wish people thought of security teams as like a heist movie group, not just techies, but like the whole team, even though we're all in the computer field.
Like in Ocean's 8?
Yeah, you're gonna need a face, right? Now, in Ocean's 8, like the face is the most charismatic of the ridiculously, good-looking actors with their pre-scripted lines. Okay, it's not going to be that kind of face. But your team is going to be successful partially if you have someone who likes to do outreach. The security team's not going to do all the work themselves. Nobody staffs for that. So who's your persuader? Who gets all hyped up about getting the sales team on board with something?
Well, I mean, it is almost like a sales job, right?
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like you got to sell security to the rest of the business. You got to sell, raises for the people who work for you, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. You have to sell upgrade your server. You have to sell, hey, we're going to bug you about your paperwork for a while here because it's not in order. You're going to sell a bunch of different things.
You have to sell, we need to patch 2.16 of Log4j, even though we just patched 2.15 2 days ago.
You're going to sell, and we're patching between Christmas and New Year's. Or we're retiring something Christmas and New Year's. Or you can't retire that between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. So you need somebody who can sell.
I have fond memories of being one of 2 people in an InfoSec team, literally between Christmas and New Year's, finding out that people had decided to just, not actually retire that thing, but it was cool. It was cool. They promised up and down and sideways that they wouldn't update it at all for the next year. And both of us were like, that sounds like a really bad plan.
So you need a face. That reminds me of A-Team. I was wondering what that was reminding me of, but when you said you need a face.
Yeah, so I think there's probably a fun game to play here where you could look at your team and be like, okay, so who's my face and who's like the super duper techie who would honestly probably like to not talk to anybody. And who's my procurer, right? You probably could do this with a fair amount of humor on your team.
Yeah, so it's kind of like in Enterprise Security Weekly, we have Adrian. He is the face. I mean, look at the guy.
Well, he's certainly the lead in this conversation.
He's just beautiful. He's just beautiful.
Can't even start.
He's got the
Let
hair.
me also
Who wouldn't want to follow him anywhere? Like the Pied Piper.
Tyler has me out charisma though. Yeah, I think he's definitely, he's got the sales. He'd be my sales guy. Like I wouldn't.
I'm
pick
the sales
me for
guy.
sales.
You're the pretty guy.
I don't know. I don't know who I am. I'm not objective enough for that.
Little biased. All right.
Yeah, I need outside help. So what are some of these other roles, Shoshana? Like we've got, in the next 5 minutes before we wrap this, I want to make sure. Like I feel like there's so much good information here. Like I feel like we should come to some kind of a conclusion with. I feel like we could come out with some good recommendations for folks in fixing some of these low morale situations.
So the recommendations are actually in some ways simple, although the work to actually do them is not. So the first one is a mindset shift, which is that your actual high-performing security team is probably not going to look or sound exactly like what you've already got in your head. The picture of computer security is kind of narrow, it's kind of technical, it's male, it's hackery. And what I would want is for people to stop for a moment and really think about, no, wait, hang on a second. What does it look like if someone's, on research all the time? What really is that job? What if you had a writer so that whenever you wrote something down, it made sense to everyone who read it? What does it look like if you have someone who's really 100% on management and is, collecting everyone's concerns and walking them through their issues? And I think both, in terms of physical looks, it's going to look different. And it's also going to just have a straight up different composition, different background, different education. So that's the first thing I'd say is remember, open the doors a little, stretch it. Think about what you don't have on the team.
Almost sounds like you're talking about diversity. Shocker.
It is about diversity. If I open with that word, a certain fraction of people shut off their brains.
Yeah.
And I don't want the shut off. Right? I think I have a side comment about diversity turning into eat your vegetables, which I think is incredibly short-sighted at a business level. So it is about diversity.
That's because that sales piece. I think that's key alone there. I know so many security people that don't get what they want because they talk about it in such a way or they preface the conversation with something that just shuts down their executives or their leadership.
Yeah, it's a problem, and it helps when you have someone who can figure out how to explain things in a way that slots it into other people's goals.
Right.
Selling and persuading is a real skill, which, harping on my point, you do need in your security team. You can't start off with, you're all schmucks for using log4j. Like, well, you just lost your audience, right?
Java's a
no
dead
one wants to help you. Right? No one wants to help you after that one.
Right.
Right? Hey, let us help you with that logging problem. We have a module we can modify. Better opening.
Yeah, some empathy, offer to help.
Yeah, right. The other thing is to really embrace the need for leadership and guidance. When you're watching a heist show, there's always a planning stage, and there's always a couple of people who are in there keeping the group on track. The dirty word there is management, and I think that it like diversity needs to get out of the bucket of words that people have been told they should do so often they're no longer listening. And just because we're in computer security doesn't mean we get out of being human. And human beings do not naturally flock. We're not that kind of species. So we need help getting along in groups, especially on hard issues that are really worrying. Right? Nobody actually gets to opt out of emotions at work, even though we like to pretend that we do. And so having folks with the skill to lead a meeting and sell a little and calm things down and know when to take a break is super helpful. And if you don't have management that can do those things and pull a team from low to high morale, then maybe you need to take a look at your management and have expectations of them as well.
Definitely. And in fact, that's advice I've given before. Like oftentimes when the management is the issue, people ask me, well, what can I do? And my answer is often, well, not a whole lot. If you can't, you can try to persuade them, but if that doesn't work, you just need to find somewhere that has better culture, better management. As an IC, it's not necessarily your job to fix all that. Like that's beyond the scope of what you could reasonably expect to be able to fix. I think in a lot of cases.
And if you're in a place where you have multiple levels of management, this is what I expect your second level managers to be dealing with. Right? So there's an accountability that goes up a management chain, and the responsibilities should go up in a matching way. No individual contributor is responsible for fixing their boss. That's not a reasonable expectation. And by the same token, you shouldn't be expected to just suffer under your boss either. Right? That's how you get low morale, is people who, there's nothing I can do. I don't care about my boss. It bleeds over into the work, and you can kind of tell. Yeah,
definitely. So as we wrap things up here, as we kind of work through what they've been calling the Great Resignation, I've noticed a lot of people are really struggling to hire folks or to get folks to stay on. You have any quick tips for hiring managers on finding folks and keeping them?
Let me start with keeping, because I think that might be the easier one. Step one with keeping your folks is asking them what they want. Generally, people have things they want and expect out of work, and it's not the same person to person. So if your folks are leaving over money, that's a very different problem than leaving over opportunities. And you may have the ability to fix one, but not the other. In terms of finding
you can't fix any of it, right?
Correct, right. So if you don't know what your employees need or want, then you can't fix it. You may also have a trust problem, and that may not be something you can fix short term. If your employees don't trust you, they'll never tell you the truth, technical truth or not. And you cannot make up trust in a couple actions. It's a sustained period. So your work on trust may have to extend into the next year, and it may have to extend into your next round of employees. So that's a long-term fix. In terms of finding and hiring, part of the problem with hiring is something that it's hard to fix in a pinpoint way. It's hard for people who are looking and people who want to hire to find each other. And I wish I had a better fix for that. I personally support networking. Generally, people can give you like an insider's view, have an idea of where you as an individual might be happy, which job is right for you. But that is also very dependent on who you already know, and it doesn't help if you need to reach beyond. So I wish there were a bigger societal answer there, and unfortunately, I don't have one for you and your listeners.
And with that, I think that's a great place to wrap. Shoshana, thank you for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today. And I think this is one of the most useful segments we've had in a long time. It's probably the number one thing that my friends and the community in general complain to me about is what you've been talking about, solutions for fixing. So thank you for that.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
And I understand you're starting a new job after almost over 14 years at Akamai. You're got a new adventure you're moving on to?
I am. In January, I'm moving to Sonos to take on a director of DevOps role. Given my interest in management and outreach sort of within an organization, it's probably not surprising that I find DevOps to be an appealing area.
Absolutely. And I've heard it's a great company. Heard nothing but good things about both the products and working there. So good luck in your new role.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to talk XDR and the SOC with Scott Crawford from 451 Research.